Hi, good afternoon. My name is Shane Robbins. I'm the superintendent here at the Kershaw County School District. And this year we are going to attempt to have a monthly webcast where we talk about relevant information and things that are going on within the school district. This month we've decided to focus on safety, as safety is a nationwide issue and things that school districts are trying to address. And I'm very pleased to have with me Deputy Doug Bowling, who is our new Director of Safety for the Kershaw County School District. And he and I are going to talk about some of the initiatives that are taking place, some of the things that we're trying to accomplish. And, you know, before we even get into this, I would tell our folks that are watching that when you try to increase your safety measures, which is very important to us, there comes a level of inconvenience with that.
Absolutely.
And we just ask that people be patient and cognizant and understanding that we're just doing this to try to safeguard what a lot of people say your most prized possession, and that's your children. So I think you are going to talk through a little bit here. We have a video that demonstrates what our entry procedures and protocols look like in our schools.
Yes, sir. And the entry procedures are actually an illustration of giving up some of that convenience for security. Every time somebody comes through our schools, they have to go through the identification, verification. They're going to ring a doorbell. They're going to ask who they are, why they're there. They're going to come in, be let in, come through a second door, go through a pass process where they get a sticker, and then they're going to be released to move on into the school for whatever business they have to have. And the video shows that pretty well.
Camden Elementary.
How may I help you?
I'd like to come have lunch with my daughter,
And your name?
Beth White.
And who are you having lunch with? Her name is Harper White.
Okay, if you would come in and sign in, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Miss White. You're having lunch with Harper today?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you for applying your badge.
You're very welcome.
And she's actually in the cafeteria now, so you may head that way.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Gretchen.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the procedure we're using, it's a nationwide procedure. Really kind of sad on how it came into place. It's from the iloveyouguys.org organization. It's a nonprofit, and it was a gentleman who lost his daughter in the very first Columbine incident, and he established this to try to help schools do a better job of safeguarding their children. And so we've adopted it. We think that it's something that's visual, pretty easy to understand. And as you come into our buildings, you'll see the posters on the wall that have the four descriptors of what we do in terms of our safety procedures and protocols. And as well as in the back of every employee's ID, you'll have the same procedures and protocols so that it'll remind them what they need to do.
It is, and I had an opportunity to actually hear Mr. Keys, the founder, speak at a couple of his training opportunities. And with a man that lost his child to one of these, he's in it because he cares. He's not there to make money like a lot of the other companies are out here trying to do. And I really truly believe he's laid the foundation for a easily understood at all levels, from kindergarten all the way up, and it works. It works.
So, you know, I would say that you probably agree with this, Deputy Bowling, and that is, You know, when we talk about the shared lexicon, the shared language, you know, about 20 years ago, we were all using codes, whether it was in healthcare or government offices, whenever there was an incident.
Even
And
in civilian shopping center.
Correct. And so school districts were no different. And so what this does is moves us to a common language so that the students, staff, and responders all know what's going on, what's taking place. There's no need to try to masquerade it and sugarcoat it, but it allows us to just function more effectively and efficiently.
And it really puts in the findings of the 9/11 Commission's reports that talking in different codes when you have different people coming, like at a school, we would have police, fire, EMS, as well as the educational staff and leadership. They have to be able to understand what they're doing so they can maintain that unity of effort.
So one of the things I wanted to share with our community, we have really a great relationship with our community partners, the county council, the Camden Police Department, the Kershaw County Sheriff's Office, and because of that, we've been able to expand the number of bodies that are actively on our campuses. And you can see in the chart that the sheriff and I work really close together. We have applied for a grant, received almost $250,000 for infrastructure upgrades, and just recently applied for another grant where we think we're going to be able to qualify for anywhere from 2 to 4 more SROs, with the goal of having an SRO in every single building on our campus. But we're making very good use of the bodies that we do have, and again, I think under the sheriff's leadership and working collaboratively with us, it's been a really good thing.
It has, and we've got an SRO in all of our high schools, to include the Woolard Technology Center, all of our middle schools, and then we have a couple in the elementary schools. Some of our elementary schools are not covered full-time, but what the sheriff has done with speaking to you is he's kind of allowed the community-oriented residential engagement team, the core team, they all stop in daily, have lunch, talk to the kids, build those relationships. So even at a part-time, all schools are covered at this time. The grants are only going to help that. Absolutely.
I'm very excited about that. So moving into the actual SRP that we're using, you know, there's 4 real simple actions that it includes in this SRP. It's a lockout, lockdown, evacuate, and shelter procedures. And so we'll talk a little bit through each one of those for our community.
So each one of the 4 directives, because that's what they are, they have the directive, which is then followed by an action word. So the first one, lockout, the action for the lockout directive is secure the perimeter, because that's really what you're trying to do.
The second one is takes it a step further, and it's lockdown. The lockdown basically is as simple as this: locks, lights, and out of sight.
The third one is evacuate. If we have a situation where we've got to move students and staff out of the building, they're going to evacuate. And the action to the direction of evacuate is going to be to a certain location, whether that be on campus or off campus.
And the final one is shelter, and that's for a hazard, using our safety strategies in place. And there's a number of different hazards in which we would use the shelter code. So every action has a specific set of instructions. We'll use our public address system and some other, we're working on radios. We have just made a purchase request for standardized radios across the district, so we'll use those.
That's going to be a big help.
The very first one is lockout, and so you saw it flashes twice, and what they'll do over the PA is they'll say secure the perimeter, lockout, secure the perimeter.
And that's important, because in time of an emergency, sometimes people lose their fine motor skills.
Right.
Auditory senses kind of get narrowed, so you give that verbal repetition to try to keep people on task.
So why would we use lockout? You know, we could use lockout for a number of reasons. It's really important. We talked about how you enter into our schools, right? All of our doors are locked once the school day starts, and you have to buzz in. But during a lockout, you can't even buzz in, and it could be because there's been a report of something dangerous happening near the school. Could be an accident, could be a shooting situation, could be a lot of different things where we just want to safeguard our kids. And so when a lockout happens, we won't let people from the outside into our buildings, and we'll bring, let's just use the elementaries for example, we'll bring all the elementary students into the building. However, operations and business as normal inside the building.
That's right. This is only a exterior perimeter shutdown.
Right.
Everything else inside's still going. So a lockdown, that's a little more serious. As the lockout, we said it's an external threat, and not even to the school, but to maybe the surrounding areas.
Right.
Lockdown is an actual threat inside the building. That could be an upset parent, it could be an active shooter, it could be many things, but during a lockdown, you're gonna give the command of locks, lights, and out of sight. Locks, lights, out of sight. Again, all repetitious for all four of the actions. And you're gonna be moving from the normal business into your classrooms or a secured area. It's important to make sure the locks are locked, the doors are locked. The Sandy Hook final report from that shooting said there is no evidence of an active shooter ever going through a locked door. If you turn the lights out, you minimize your visibility, and there's other things we do to minimize that to keep the students and staff out of sight.
So the main difference between the lockout and lockdown is business shuts down. So locks, lights, outside.
And if you think about it, lockdown is an external threat, or a lockout is an external threat. A lockdown
Internal.
is already gotten inside.
So evacuate, we'll evacuate, and it'll really be based on the building. They'll give the command to whatever location you're evacuating to.
And all of our schools have designated evacuation locations, both on and off.
And we could use evacuations for several reasons. The first one that comes to mind is a fire. So that's why we do our monthly fire drills. What can you take with you when you evacuate? You really don't worry about taking anything with you. You could take your cell phone or any valuables that are right there, but you just are going to evacuate out of the building. We do have what we call go bags for our teachers that have their class rosters, any students that have medical conditions, and just some basic emergency things that they may need that they can take with them as they go out.
And I would say in an emergency, take what you have.
Yeah.
There's no need, everything else can be replaced. The teachers have a little bit of a responsibility to grab that go bag, that folder that's hanging on their wall, so they can ensure accountability, because with any emergency response, we need to make sure that we have full accountability of our students, so either we can let you know that we're all accounted for or initiate some search processes. Shelter's the last one, and really a shelter, that's shelter in place. You're going to secure yourself in an area, and it's for a hazard using any of many safety strategies. It could be a hazardous material spill, where we're looking at protecting ourselves from the hazardous vapors that may be in the air based on wind direction, topographical layout of the terrain. It could be a tornado has come through and damaged part of our building, but the rest of the building is still stable. We're going to evacuate to that safe area and shelter in that safe zone. So sheltering is the tough part, because you can't answer all emergencies. You just got to put an action in place.
Hey, you left one out, which is one I'm just now becoming familiar with, and that's the hurricane.
The hurricane.
Right there.
Well, and we're also in an earthquake
Yeah.
zone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have to prepare for everything, both man-made and natural.
So again, just the four actions. We have the lockout, we have the lockdown, we have the evacuate, and we have the shelter. All things that are going to be very standardized across our school district. I think a couple just little add-ins, and you might want to tie on to this, is the fact that we are working closely with our emergency responders.
We are.
We are managing these drills on a weekly and monthly basis across the district. And one of the plans I think we have is maybe at some point in the summer is to bring our emergency responders, our administrators in, and have a tabletop exercise just to continue to refine and get better at what we're trying to do.
We are, and it's important. I talk with the local emergency responders at all levels regularly, and we will start with a tabletop, but as we develop our actions and our processes on paper, we will move on to a full scale where we'll use during the off school time away from students and staff, but we're going to actually validate that what we have is significant to handle any threats that we may have.
So, I would just end with this, and that is, when you harden buildings, and I don't like to use that term, but when you try to safeguard your buildings, it's not easy. And I always say that the main reason is a school building it's built for function, right? Not security. And so I use an example of some of these active shooter drills. You may quiz teacher A who heard 5 rounds and teacher B who heard 15. Well, that's because our classrooms are insulated so that teachers can teach side by side.
That's right.
So those are workarounds that we have to look at. And I think, you're going to do some perimeter walks and look at what we can do to harden our buildings, but yet still make them pleasing and functional at the same time.
Yeah, especially with the sounds. And I have some ideas in place to do that during maybe our teacher work days where only teachers are there, because it is important that they understand what different sounds appear to be in times of emergency. And then, like you said, we've got to keep our schools pleasantly appealing to the eye. And it's sad that we're in this day that we have to take these actions. Right. But it's great to have a program like I Love You Guys. It's very simple. It's standardized, and you can apply those same functions to one of the many emergencies that we may face. So it allows for the decreasing of confusion, if you will.
So for those who took the time to watch us this month, I thank you. And I just want to end by saying safety is our #1 priority at the Kershaw County School District.